Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Joining me today is my most adorable co host, Nora, journeyman storyteller and initiate to the seventh circle of lore. And she may be popping in and out of here a little bit, as she does, as she is wont to do. Very free spirited creature, that one. And for today, we are going to be doing a regular DM guide episode. And I was going to do more on fixing D20 Modern, and I wanted to present a class that I just feel is fantastic. And looking around at the admittedly few message boards and forums, a lot of other people, well, the handful of other people that have talked about or do talk about D20 Modern seem to agree that this one is just, if you're into ranking different classes into various tiers, is definitely top shelf. It's one of the best advanced classes that was ever produced for D20 Modern. But I'm missing a slide with half of the first level ability, and there's just little errors here and there throughout, so it needs just a little more time to bake in the oven. I need to fix it and make it presentable. I may be amateur at this, but I still want to bring a certain level of quality to everything here, despite the occasional errors. And so for today, we are going to be revisiting an old episode. In fact, my first ever episode here on YouTube. And it's about 3 years old now. And that is the inaugural episode was just the subject of DMing itself and what it took to be a good and ready DM. And that was details. What do I mean by details? Well, you need to know about the setting that you're throwing your players into. You need to know what characters the players are putting together. So you need to communicate with them. Tell them what the setting is, what it is kind of you're going for, without spoiling whatever the plot is you have up your sleeve. And you need to find out what kind of characters they're playing and what kind of backstories that they have. So that way you can loop all of that into your campaign. Why do you want to loop it into the campaign? Well, you want the players to feel like their characters are invested in this, like they're a part of this world, and you want them to feel like their actions have repercussions and consequences. That results happen as, a direct result of them taking action in this world. How much result just kind of depends, because if you're dealing with, say, Shadowrun, where it's a cyberpunk dystopian nightmare sci-fi fantasy realm in the future, their actions are not going to be overly much. They may help a small community here and there. They may wipe out a small community as a result of their actions. But it's going to be small little microcosms of change that they're able to affect that overall can't and really don't do much to change the world because the mega corporations are just going to persist. The machinery, the structure, the superstructure surrounding them, the very shape of the world just means that they will never go away. And that kind of a setting, their effect is going to be minimal, but they're still going to see the results of their actions, whether it's through their pay, their reputation, or just the adulation of the general public. Uh, and then you have games like Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, where maybe their actions have much more effect because players or their characters in these games and settings will have much more influence over the world around them. And the game allows for that because there aren't these monolithic, huge, vastly incomprehensible organizations at play. There are still secret societies, kingdoms, empires, and the like, but they're not so vast and monolithic and indestructible that the players can't do something about them or do something to affect them. And because of this, you need to know the details of those kingdoms, of those empires, who the rulers are, how they react, how they think. And it seems like a lot to keep in mind at first, but it's like anything else. The more you practice at this, the more you play at this, the more you DM, the better you will get at it. As long as you're striving to improve, as long as you take the time to try to learn the details about the Forgotten Realms, about Faerun, as long as you learn about the various areas like Icewind Dale and the 10 towns up there, or if you learn about the city of Neverwinter, the city of Waterdeep, and Kalimshan, all up and down along the Sword Coast there. You learn about the different thieves guilds that run Kalimshan. You learn about Drizzt or Artemis and Trary. I need to come look? Okay. Pardon me, folks, I need to go attend to something here. Welcome back once again, everybody. It was a fabulous construct that she had put together using different magnet tiles. It basically looked like a Disney rave with all the different Minnie and Mickey Mouses and Donald Ducks all crammed into one little space that was multicolored and just scintillating with light. Surely it was a fantastic party for these various homunculine constructs she has out there. But when it comes back to details, once you know about these different areas and regions, select the area that you want to start the players off in. You don't need to learn everything about every part of the world, but say you want to play around in Waterdeep. It's a classic location for the players to start off in. And what you want to do then is just learn about the area, learn about the masked lords, learn about the different factions and power structure there. And if you don't have a lot of detail on that, then fill in that detail. What gangs are there? What shops are there? What are some of the names of the local guards? Different noble houses, merchant houses, different settings and locales within the city of Waterdeep. What's the surrounding area of Waterdeep like? It's a coastal city, so there's lots of ships coming in and out, faces changing on a regular basis, coming and going. The players, if they've been residents of Waterdeep, they may recognize some of the ships and go, there goes the old Black Harpy. She's leaving, but she'll be back again. Oh, that old Captain Scarborough, he's such a character. Great drinker, but fabulously terrible gambler. Made so much money off of him. Those little details right there add a lot of character, and that's just a bunch of random crap I was making up off the top of my head. And there's just only the slightest hints of hesitation there, and that's just because I've practiced at this quite a bit. And really, you could mistake that for an NPC's particular speech patterns, as long as you remember to keep repeating that, where they just take a second to pronounce and find the different words that they're throwing at you, and alter your voice just a bit, so that way the players know that you're acting in character. And everything will just flow out naturally from there. Again, the more and more that you practice this. So, knowing those details and coming up with those details, what's the point of it? What's the benefit? Well, aside from allowing the players to feel like they're playing in a living, functioning world, it helps to immerse them into it more. The immersion is absolutely important because I've had some of my players say, one of my players, in fact, says that he forgets sometimes that he's not actually playing a goblin witch. He just kind of sinks into the role and just rolls with it. Didn't plan that one, but hey, here we are. And so he just dives into this world because it feels complete enough to him that it's like he's going through this fantastic steampunk fantasy setting that I've laid out before them. Which reminds me, I lost that notebook. It's the second time I've lost a notebook for that world. But third time's the charm, and third time means I can do it even better. I can fix some of the errors and notes. It's just all that history that I put into things. But that's another example of detail there. For a custom setting, for a custom world, I went back and started building the history behind the current events that the players were dealing with. And largely what it centered around on was this one particular continent, and it was the continent of Kildara, and there are three principal factions involved overall. Not that there weren't other nations or other locations that couldn't be important, but for this story I was throwing this particular group of players through, this concerns the Corvarian Empire, the Orcs of Three Tusk Hold, and the Silver Spire refugees. And the Silver Spire refugees are dwarves who used to occupy Three Tusk Hold, at the time called the Silver Spire Mountain Home. And it was this great war that had happened a couple of centuries back. Only about 2 or 3 centuries back, in fact. And a great orc warlord, based off of visions from the tribe's various shamans and clerics, brought his people south, gathering as many as he could, as their destiny lay towards the south and the west. and they came down, descending upon the Silver Spire mountain home, hoping to stake it and claim it as their own. And they've laid siege to this kingdom. Essentially, it's a kingdom enclosed within a mountain and the outer outlying hills and forests and the like. And the fighting was just brutal and harsh. The dwarves assailing the gates, trying to find a way in, sending teams of climbers just up the sides of the mountain, trying to find any holes in the defenses, going higher and higher up, fighting every step of the way. Well, the Silver Spire dwarves and the Corvarian Empire had an alliance between the two of them. So when the Corvarian Empire got word that their allies were under siege, and not only that, but it's a valuable trading partner, is trading for dwarven-made goods, arms, armor, and the like, definitely very, very important. So the Corvarian Empire comes in and hits the orc horde from the flank. And the orcs actually are managing to fight them on two fronts. Not great, it's expensive in terms of lives to do that, but they're holding them off slightly. And relief comes in the form of the climbing teams finding a way in closer to the top of the mountain. And this way in towards the top of the mountain means they're coming in behind some of the dwarves' strongest defenses internally. And so hundreds of orcs start climbing up the ladders, ropes, the various paths that have been made by the previous climbing teams, and they start swarming inside. And now the fighting is inside the mountain home, so it's even more fierce than before. Think like how awful the Battle of Stalingrad was. That's what I'm going for with this particular fight between the orcs and the Silver Spire dwarves. And because they come in near the top, they capture several valuable hostages, including the son of their High King. And so the fighting just, as I said, just is fierce, raging all up and down. At one point, they're fighting in this huge alchemical laboratory, and the fighting causes this toxic mixture of different chemicals, and it just gives off this poisonous miasma that just begins to filter through a large section of the complex and kills thousands. The dwarves naturally blame the orcs as a callous act of desperation on their part. The orcs blame the dwarves, citing that the dwarves did it so that way if they couldn't have this place, nobody would. And so both sides blame one another, and the fighting just keeps going. Several rescue attempts are made to try to rescue the nobles and children of these noble families from the orcs, but very few are successful. And in fact, the High King is slain in the process. And this throws the dwarves and the Empire into disarray, as now most of the fighting is just contained within the mountain home, with orcs who were trapped outside, either being rounded up and captured, slaughtered, or very few smaller groups breaking away and slipping away. Some making their way into elven lands, going into the deepest part of the woods where even the elves do not dare to tread, and becoming fundamentally altered over the centuries by the strange fey magics that reside in these deep woods. So the fighting just continues on, and the dwarves finally get their shit together and decide to rally around the captain of the High King's personal bodyguard, Master of the Sunless Citadel. And unfortunately, I forget his name at the moment. It's one of those unfortunate things of trying to remember all the details for a world you've created. But they get a leader now, a war leader that they can all rally behind, somebody that they all consider to be honorable and without fault. So now that they're organized, or reorganized rather, and under an incredibly skilled tactician and strategic master, they begin plowing through, and they eventually put a bounty on the orc warlord's head. And an assassin finally makes his way in. He's just a regular soldier as far as anybody knows, and he manages to slip behind orc lines through all the myriad array of defenses that they're now successfully manning and utilizing to their best extent. And he makes his way towards the warlord's room and removes his head and brings it back as proof. So he makes it behind enemy lines, and then he makes it back out, having slaughtered this badass, powerful, and brilliant orc war leader. And then he goes on to found an Assassin's Guild, the 13 Crows Assassin's Guild. And this man is repeatedly seen throughout the oncoming centuries. But, anyways, that's just, I could keep going, obviously. It's a lot of detail I remember, but it sets up this conflict where the dwarves eventually have retaken their home, and then they enslave the remaining orcs as punishment and reparations, and also to make up for the fact that they've lost a lot of their workforce in the fighting. Yes, honey? You got scared? What scared you, honey? Pip Pip? Pip Pip's okay, honey. May I see, please? So, so basically, the dwarves enslave the orcs as punishment, and over the coming centuries, they get used to having that slave labor doing the mining for them, and they grow ever more callous. There's a reason for it, there's history for it, but it's unimaginably cruel. I mean, it's slavery, but the dwarves go even further with it because some of these dwarves were alive back when all of this happened. Most of them are, including the son of the High King. Well, he's now the High King, and he's scarred and traumatized and remembers how horrible everything was. He was just a young child at the time, and so he has this incredibly grim, hateful view of the orcs. And when it comes time that their numbers have just exploded to the point where um, the current rate of food that they're supplying down to their slaves just isn't keeping up, he just says, "Let them eat their dead." And of course, a rebellion happens. Uh, and an orc, she collapses in one of the tunnels and just begins sobbing, crying, praying for some kind of relief. And this goddess of hearth and home, this goddess of basically, this sweet, kindly, matronly figure reaches out to her and heals her, tends to her, and reveals an old forgotten forge in one of the tunnels. And they use this forge, secreting away whatever bits of material they can. They make themselves new armor, weapons, things that they can easily hide, but still weapons and armaments nonetheless. And when they enact the rebellion, they take the different guard posts by surprise, and they take their weapons and equipment. And this rebellion just spreads like a wildfire. And it happens so suddenly that the dwarves have very little time to rally their armies. And remember, it's only been a couple of centuries that while they have had some time to replenish their numbers, dwarves age and advance much more slowly in comparison to humans and orcs. So they're caught off guard. The orc rebellion has time to build its momentum, and they surge forward. Well, as an act of desperation to keep more orcs from joining the fray, they begin going to the sections that have not risen up yet and begin slaughtering the orcs en masse, every last man, woman, and child, as best they can at any rate. But this only serves to piss the orcs off even more, so they surge further through and through. And the High King, affected by his trauma still, is just utterly paralyzed by what's going on and is making poor decision after poor decision, essentially his own fear and trauma making him the orc's greatest ally. Some of the dwarven leaders realize what's happening and go, "Oh no." And one of them actually begins making plans for escape. Not that he wants to abandon his home, he wants to fight to the last, but he's pragmatic and realistic enough a leader that he realizes that they need to regroup. So he begins laying out an exit strategy. Even though very few other people will take him up on it, at least in this early stage, he still wants to have that contingency in place in order to preserve something should the worst come to pass. And the worst comes to pass, and the orcs end up having to evacuate. The Corvarian Empire gets involved, and they of course want to honor their treaty with their allies. So they surge forwards, they help fight the orcs, but the Corvarian Empire, their Emperor Elias Corwin VII, has effectively ended slavery in his own empire. And so he is conflicted because he has just released several of his own people in favor of having a skilled labor force. He did so for moral reasons, but he had pragmatic reasons available because a skilled labor force means more people generating income, taxable income. So this is something he's presented as a solution to the rest of the empire. Not everybody has gone on board with it. Some people were profiting greatly from the slave trade. But enough people have embraced it and enough people have made money from this that he's got enough support to maintain his own position as emperor. And so, because of this moral conflict, it comes up to the Battle of the Lowland Plains, specifically at the Sigurd Battle Works, where the orcs and dwarves and humans clash for one final time, hard enough that the emperor decides to call for peace talks, for an armistice, to begin hashing out details for peace. This pisses off the dwarves, but the dwarves don't have the strength and numbers to do much about the orcs. The orcs just fought two armies to a standstill. So that's the setting, or that's the setup for the setting that the players were running around in. Is this conflict between these three nations. The Corvarian Empire and the Orcs of Three Tusk Hold are at peace and are actually trading. The Corvarian Empire has to. The Three Tusk Hold still produces a lot of raw material goods, a lot of iron, and the Orcs are skilled at it because they've been doing it for a couple of centuries now. So they leverage their economic position as well as their military position into forcing the empire into a settlement. And the empire hops onto it both for moral reasons as well as economic ones, leaving the dwarves pissed. But some of the dwarves are tired of the fighting as well. And given that the orcs, again, understanding their position, they've taken a point of not destroying and looting the various family tombs, because it's something that they can hold over the dwarves' heads. It's something that they can hold there as, hey, this is a negotiating point. This is our negotiating tactic. We won't destroy these, and in fact, we'll even let you come and visit, maintain the wards, do whatever important prayers you need to do, or if you want to transfer the bodies and the goods out of here to a new place, you can do so. And so, it's a way of getting the dwarves to go, maybe they're really not all that bad. Maybe we did something wrong. But of course, the decision is split, and the Silver Spire refugees are now living within the Corvarian Empire, and they're definitely a major faction of discontent. They're not happy. They're pissed about the whole situation. But that's just, again, those details help to inform everything and make the world feel that much more alive. And I'm paraphrasing a whole lot here. I'm giving you the shortened version. And I've been gassing on about this for almost 18 minutes now. So, yeah. But again, that just helps to inform the situation, the political, the economic, all of these different things. There's anti-orc sentiment. There's businesses that are setting up in anticipation of orc business, like the Quiet Irons Thieves Guild. They set themselves up in a position where they started opening up, taking their different brothels and opening them up to orc business, hiring basically orc prostitutes to appeal to their orc business business partners, customers, potential orc customers that they might have down the line. And they're opening up because it's going to be a massive financial benefit, because most of the orcs that are coming to the various points, trading points in the Corvarian Empire, are going to be merchants or their guards, so people with coin and money. So, yeah, you can see how this all begins feeding into things all the way around. And these different interests and these different motivations help to just inform what you can do, what you can throw at the players, and what the players can embroil themselves into. Because you can plan a complex, incredible adventure, but the instant the players decide they don't want to follow the path you laid out before them and take a left turn going on down towards Albuquerque, well, you have to know what is down along that path. Or at least you have to be able to come up with it. So the more you know about your world, whether it's a custom world or something that's pre-made, you need to know what it is. So that way you can instantly, just like that, tell the players what's down around the corner there. Who's down there? How are they going to react? What are they going to do? How can the players react to this situation? I mean, There's so many things you can do, and it all hinges on the details that you have at hand. The more you know this, the better you'll be. And not only that, but the more you practice at this, the better you'll be at all of this. It's just something that takes time. So, players, if you have somebody that's new to DMing, cut them a little bit of slack if they don't know everything right offhand, if they need to check their notes, look things up in their book. I still need to every now and then. I still need to take a moment and think, because sometimes, I mean, the incredible ingenuity of a person, much less a group of people, can absolutely throw you for a loop. And I have moments where I go, God damn it, I didn't plan for this. Guys, come on. give me a break here. But it's fun. It's fun and it's hilarious. It's hilarious when it happens. Shouldn't be frustrating or embarrassing or anything like that. It should be fun. And that's really the most important thing, that rule zero. What's fun? Are you having fun? It's because that's the only way you're doing any of this wrong, is if you're not having fun. But with a little bit of preparation, just a little bit of notes, and some knowledge of even just the immediate city or town or small area that the players are going to be operating in, can do absolute wonders for your DMing and allow you a little bit more freedom to just get creative and describe how, when the players are embroiled in battling this horde of zombies, they see this creature come forwards and just start carving its way through whatever allies the players have. It's just deftly, almost relaxed, without thinking, without need for planning or forethought, just carves, parries, dodges, and slices its way through various allies. And the players can go, oh god. Just those descriptions can help set that mood and feeling. Those little details in the moment can really just help the players go, God damn, this is going to be great. Grinding your face into the mud is going to be so good. And then you surprise them and it turns out, oh no, this guy's several levels ahead of us. We need to run now. It's just absolutely great. DMing is just so rewarding and so much fun. I miss playing sometimes, but really, when my players look at me and their jaws just kind of drop as they go, oh, it all fits now. That makes sense. There were clues that this cleric was a succubus all along. Oh God, we've been had from the beginning. That moment is just so worth it. Absolutely. And I hope that all of you who are thinking about becoming DMs, that you do so, that you dive into it with full vigor, with an attempt to fully prepare, and oh my god, I need to wrap this up now. Something tragic has happened. Thank you all so very much for your time. If you enjoyed today's video, please go down there, hit the like button, hit subscribe, let me know down below. And there's going to be more videos popping up over this way. I hope you have enjoyed your time with me today. I have been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night. I have to go take care of something now.